Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So you look in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 1, verse 11. Moses, as he speaks to the people, and he gave them a quick synopsis of the past 40 years, and he concludes it with a blessing to the people. And he says to them, I'm going to read the verse, may Hashem, the God of your ancestors, add to you or increase your numbers 1,000 times over. And may he bless you like he spoke to you. Now, of course, what did God speak to them? That there will be so plenty, such a multitude, like no one can count. If you recall all the blessings throughout, whether it was to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, and even later, where God said he'll bless them like the stars of the sky, the dust of the earth, that it's so great in number that there's no count even. Now, if you really examine this verse, Moses is saying two separate things, perhaps even two opposite things. First, he says a blessing that is measured 1,000 times over. It's a lot, albeit it is measured, it is limited. And then he says, let him bless you, let God bless you like he spoke to you, meaning an unlimited blessing. What's going on here? Is it this blessing or is it that blessing? Well, Rashi is Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, who is, perhaps you can say, the most authoritative commentary on the Torah. So to speak, without Rashi, we really cannot understand the verses properly. Rashi explains what took place here. And Rashi tells us that Moses first blessed them by saying the first part of the verse, which is, God should bless you 1,000 times over, increase your numbers 1,000 times over. But the Jewish people retorted and said, Moses, thank you for the blessing, but you're limiting the blessing. Because even though it's 1,000 times, that's a lot, that's a tremendous amount. And remember, their numbers at the time were several million people. At the most conservative estimate, it had to be at that point already 3-4 million people, at least. So 1,000 times over, that's wow. But still, it's a limitation. There is a finite number that you put to it, 1,000 times over. And that's when Moses completed the verse and said, you know, you're right. Let him bless you. Like he said, let him bless you according to his status, which is, of course, infinity. So question. First of all, why would Moses not think of that on his own? In other words, why would he bless them with his, quote, unlimited blessing, end of quote? And I mean, with his, quote, limited, finite blessing, end of quote. And number two, once he had already corrected his blessing and said, yes, let he bless you according to his terms, according to his status, why is there any place for the first blessing? Well, the answer is, of course, the ultimate blessing is God's blessing. The ultimate is when it has that infinite quality that comes directly from God. However, the blessings need to materialize in this world, in our reality. Sometimes just because something is infinite, it actually is not a blessing. Because if that infinity could not somehow confine itself to the finite reality that we live in, that God put us in, then it's worthless. It's worthless. It's like if you're thirsty and you see a glass of water or a bottle of water, but it's behind a locked glass door. It's worthless. It's meaningless to you. In fact, it's worse, perhaps, in a certain sense, because it's a teaser. You're looking at it, you're thirsty, and there's no way you can break that glass open. There's no sign that says, in case of emergency, smash the glass, because it's a very thick, shatterproof glass. So what are you going to do? A little drop of warm water that's been baking in the sun has more value at that point than that beautiful, delicious, freezing cold bottle of water that's behind that glass door. So God, he gives the ultimate and the most infinite blessing. But when we deliver the blessing, when one person blesses the other, two things. Number one, you have to bless within the reality that you're in. Number two, and here is the key to blessing. When you bless, you give it all you got. You give your maximum. You give the best that you can give, the best that your imagination could offer, could deliver. And that's what Moses did. Without getting too nitty-gritty, but Kabbalistically, Moses' name, Moshe, which is Mem Shin He, the Hebrew letters, actually represents and has the same numerical value of God's name, Kel Shakai. I'm mispronouncing it, which is spelled Aleph Lamed Shin Dalid Yud. Well, one of the formulas to formalize gematria is by not only counting the actual letter of the word, but by spelling out the letter in its entirety, in its fullness. For example, the letter Aleph, instead of it just being one solitary letter of Aleph, you spell it out in its entirety as it is called. Now it's Aleph Lamed Hey. Instead of it being Aleph, which is only accounts for one, Aleph is the first letter, so it's one, it actually becomes now Aleph Lamed Pei, which Aleph is 1, Lamed is 30, Pei is 80. You already have 113, 111, and so on and so forth. When you do that numerical value of the two names of God, Kel Shakai, which is synonymous with the name Moshe, you come to the number 1,000. Thus, Moses gave him his best. He gave it all he's got. But still the people were correct, because still at the end of the day, even though that's all you got, but we don't want you to ignore and leave out the blessing of God. They wanted it. They were smart. They wanted it channeled through Moses, even though Moses, as great as he is, still being a human being, does not have control on the infinity. And therefore, that's why Moses on his part chose to give him a finite blessing, figuring at least I give him the best I got. And that's something which I, so to speak, have my hands on. I have control over, and therefore I can deliver to them effectively. So in short, the lesson is, when you give a blessing to somebody else, give it all you got. But at the same time, remember that God's blessing is the ultimate blessing. And hopefully through you delivering all you got, God will, so to speak, step in the next phase and give it all he's got. Now that's an infinite blessing.